October 19th, 2024. Every night, a 9-year-old girl returns to the same library corner, hiding her sleeping bag behind the reference books, desperately trying to keep her disappearance a secret. When a wealthy entrepreneur stumbles upon her huddled in the dark, she makes him promise not to tell anyone, because she's terrified of what happens if the authorities find her. But here's what he discovers. Why is this intelligent, articulate child choosing the cold floor of a library over going home? The Riverside Public Library closed its doors at 9 p.m. sharp. Sarah Mitchell had worked the evening shift for 3 years, and she knew the routine by heart. Check the bathrooms, scan the aisles, lock the back entrance, flip the switches. But tonight, something was different. A small noise, barely audible, came from somewhere near the reference section in the back corner. Sarah's first instinct was to dismiss it. Old buildings make sounds. The heating system rattled. The ancient wooden shelves settled. But curiosity pulled her deeper into the library, past the biography section, toward the geography and history materials where barely anyone ever ventured after dark. That's when she saw it. A small bundle wedged between 2 towering shelves, partially concealed by a thick curtain someone had hung. At first, Sarah thought it was a pile of forgotten books or perhaps someone's abandoned jacket. Then the bundle shifted. A small hand emerged, clutching something. Her heart stopped. "Hello?" Sarah whispered, though she didn't know why she was whispering. "Is someone there?" The bundle froze. For a moment, nothing happened. Then slowly, very slowly, a small face appeared from beneath a thin, worn sleeping bag. Wide eyes, dark and startled, stared back at her. The girl looked to be around 9 or 10 years old, with tangled brown hair and skin that hadn't seen sunlight in far too long. "Please don't call anyone," the girl said immediately, her voice trembling. "Please, I'm not hurting anything. I'm not taking anything. I'll leave. I can leave right now." Sarah felt something break inside her chest. This wasn't a trespasser or a vandal. This was a child. A terrified child who looked like she'd been living in the shadows of the library's back corner for who knew how long. "Sweetheart, what's your name?" Sarah asked gently, lowering herself to the girl's eye level. "Lily," the girl whispered. "I'm Lily." "Okay, Lily. I'm not going to hurt you, but I need to understand what you're doing here. Why are you sleeping in the library?" Lily's eyes darted around as if searching for an escape route. She clutched her sleeping bag tighter, and that's when Sarah noticed her other hand was holding something. A library book. The Odyssey by Homer. A book meant for advanced readers, not children. "Because I'm safe here," Lily finally answered, her voice barely above a whisper. "At night, when everyone leaves, I'm safe." Over the next hour, Sarah sat with Lily in that quiet corner of the library. The girl didn't say much at first, but slowly, piece by piece, a tragic picture emerged. Lily had been living with her grandmother for 2 years after her mother had abandoned her. The grandmother, who had recently suffered a stroke, could no longer care for her. Social services had been called, and Lily was supposed to be placed in a foster home 3 weeks ago, but Lily had run. She couldn't explain exactly why, only that the foster family's home felt unsafe, that something about it made her skin crawl. So instead of going back, she had found refuge in the one place she knew, the Riverside Public Library, where she came every day after school and stayed long into the night. "I have friends," Lily said softly. "The books are my friends. And the librarian during the day, Mr. Chun, he doesn't ask too many questions. He just smiles at me and makes sure I have access to good books." Sarah's heart ached. This child had been living in a library for 3 weeks, hiding behind reference books, sleeping on the cold floor in a sleeping bag so thin you could almost see through it. During the day, she attended school like nothing was wrong. At night, she disappeared into the stacks and became invisible. "How are you eating?" Sarah asked. "The school lunch," Lily said. "And sometimes the library has community donations. There's a small kitchen area where volunteers leave snacks. Nobody notices if a book or two goes missing from my backpack." Sarah noticed Lily's shoes worn through at the heel, the sole separating from the upper. Her clothes were layered, thin sweaters over thin shirts, clearly an attempt to stay warm without raising suspicion. And her hands. Sarah looked at her small hands and saw they were chapped and red, the nails bitten down to nothing. "Lily, I have to ask you something important," Sarah said carefully. "Is someone hurting you? At home? At the foster family?" Lily didn't answer directly. Instead, she pulled up her sleeve slightly, and Sarah saw faint bruises on her upper arm. The kind that looked like finger marks. Old bruises, yellowing at the edges, but bruises nonetheless. "I don't want to go back," Lily said, her voice cracking. "I don't care what they do to me. I'm never going back to that house. They can send police. They can send social workers. But I'm not going back." Sarah sat there in the quiet library, surrounded by thousands of stories about adventure and escape, triumph and heartbreak, and realized that the most important story of all was unfolding right in front of her. A child so desperate to survive that she had made a library her home. A child so determined to protect herself that she had chosen the cold floor and the shadows over any place where adults had authority over her. Before she left the library that night, Sarah made a decision. She didn't call the authorities immediately. Instead, she did something that would change everything. She called her friend Marcus Webb, a philanthropist and entrepreneur who had donated substantial funds to the library's renovation project 5 years earlier. She called him because she knew he was the kind of person who didn't just throw money at problems. He actually showed up and got his hands dirty. "Marcus, I need your help with something," Sarah said into the phone at 9:47 p.m. "There's a child, and I think you need to meet her." Marcus arrived at the library within 45 minutes. And when he walked into that back corner and saw Lily, this small, fierce, terrified girl clutching her library book and her sleeping bag, something shifted in him that would echo through the rest of his life. He didn't know it yet, but his entire world was about to change. Marcus Webb had built his fortune in real estate development, turning forgotten neighborhoods into thriving communities. He was used to solving problems through capital and strategy. But standing in the back corner of the Riverside Public Library at nearly 11 p.m., looking at a 9-year-old girl wrapped in a sleeping bag, he realized his usual playbook wouldn't work here. Lily stared at him with deep suspicion. She had gone rigid the moment Sarah introduced him as someone important, someone with money and connections. To Lily, that meant power, and power meant danger. "It's okay," Marcus said slowly, keeping his hands visible and his voice low. "I'm not here to take you anywhere. Sarah called me because she thought I might be able to help. That's all." "Help how?" Lily asked, her eyes narrowing. "By calling the police? By making me go to another foster home?" Marcus crouched down to her level, a gesture that took effort. His expensive suit bunching awkwardly, his polished shoes scraping against the worn library floor. "I don't know yet, but before anyone does anything, I'd like to understand your situation. Would you tell me what happened?" What struck Marcus most was how articulate Lily was. Despite her circumstances, she spoke with clarity and intelligence. Her vocabulary was advanced. She referenced books he'd never read. As she talked, he realized this wasn't a child from a neglectful home. This was a child who had been cared for once, who had been read to, who had been encouraged to learn. Lily explained that her mother had disappeared when she was 7. Her grandmother had taken her in, and for 2 years everything had been stable. Her grandmother had been a teacher before her stroke. She encouraged Lily to read, to ask questions, to dream. But when her grandmother's health deteriorated, social services got involved. "The foster family," Lily said quietly, "was supposed to be temporary, just until my grandmother got better. But she didn't get better. And the people there, they—" She stopped, her jaw tightening. "The man kept coming into my room at night. He said it was normal, that all girls my age went through it. He said if I told anyone, they wouldn't believe me because I was just a foster kid. Nobody cares about foster kids." Marcus felt something cold settle in his chest. He'd encountered darkness before in his life, but this kind, the kind that targeted children, made him want to burn the entire system down. "Did you tell anyone?" he asked carefully. "I told the social worker," Lily said. "Ms. Patricia Chen. She said she'd investigate, but nothing happened. The man said I was lying. He said I was trying to cause trouble because I was ungrateful. And Ms. Chun stopped coming around so much. So I ran. I came here because it's the only place I've ever felt safe. Marcus looked at Sarah, who was standing nearby with tears streaming down her face. Then he looked back at Lily. Okay, he said. Here's what I think we should do. But I want to know what you think first. I think we need to get you somewhere safe. Somewhere with people you trust, people who can help protect you. But I also think we need to make sure that what happened to you doesn't happen to another child. Does that sound reasonable? Lily nodded slowly, but he could see the fear in her eyes. She'd been promised help before. Over the next 2 hours, Marcus made phone calls from the library's small office. He called his personal lawyer, David Torres, a man who specialized in cases involving child welfare and had a reputation for being ruthless when it came to protecting vulnerable people. He called his friend Dr. Helen Park, a pediatrician he'd worked with on various charitable projects. He even called a former colleague, James Richardson, who now worked in Child Protective Services and had always maintained his integrity despite a system that often rewarded compromise. By 1:30 a.m., a plan had formed. Marcus turned to Lily. Here's what's going to happen. First, Dr. Park is going to examine you, just to make sure you're healthy and to document anything we need to document. Then you're going to come home with me. I have a guest house on my property. Separate, private, but not isolated. You'll have your own space, and you'll have meals, and you won't have to hide. For how long? Lily asked. As long as it takes, Marcus said. Until we figure out what's safe and what's permanent. What about school? You'll keep going to school. Nothing changes there. But in the evenings, you won't disappear into a library. You'll be somewhere safe. Lily was quiet for a long moment. Then she asked the question that would haunt Marcus for years to come. Why are you doing this? You don't know me. I'm nobody. Marcus thought about his answer carefully. Because someone needs to. And because you're not nobody, Lily. You're a young woman with a brilliant mind and tremendous courage. The fact that you survived 3 weeks on a library floor instead of accepting abuse says everything about your strength. I'm doing this because you deserve better than surviving. You deserve to actually live. When Dr. Park arrived at 2 a.m. and examined Lily in a private room Sarah had set up, she found evidence of malnutrition, dehydration, and signs of the trauma Lily had described. She also found something else. A girl with an intact mind, capable of articulating her experience, willing to cooperate, determined to protect herself. This child has been through something terrible, Dr. Park told Marcus quietly. But her psychological resilience is remarkable. She hasn't dissociated. She hasn't minimized what happened. She knows she was wronged. Lily arrived at Marcus's home just as dawn was breaking. The guest house was modest by his standards, 3 bedrooms, a small kitchen, a living area, but to Lily it must have looked like a palace. She stood in the doorway, her thin sleeping bag rolled under her arm, her library book clutched to her chest, and simply stared. This is mine? She asked. It's yours, Marcus confirmed. For as long as you need it. Marcus had hired a housekeeper, Mrs. Patricia Garcia, who arrived an hour later with groceries. Not the cheap, processed kind, but fresh fruit, good bread, eggs, vegetables. She prepared breakfast while Lily watched from the kitchen table, her eyes never leaving the food being prepared. When the plate was set in front of her, scrambled eggs, toast with butter, fresh berries, and a glass of milk, Lily asked, Is this for me? All of it. All of it. Mrs. Garcia confirmed with a warm smile. Lily ate slowly, savoring each bite. Halfway through, she looked up at Marcus. My grandmother used to make eggs like this, on Sunday mornings before church. Tell me about her, Marcus said, sitting across from her. And Lily did. She talked about her grandmother's laugh, about the books they read together, about the promises made before the stroke took so much away. She talked about missing her, about wondering if her grandmother knew she'd run away, about whether her grandmother thought she was a bad person. Marcus listened without interrupting. He recognized in Lily something he'd seen before in survivors, the desperate need to remember who they were before trauma tried to redefine them. That first day, Lily slept for 14 hours straight. She woke in the guest house bed with clean sheets and a full stomach, and for the first time in 3 weeks, there was no library wall above her head. No fear that someone would find her. No cold floor beneath her thin sleeping bag. When she came out of the bedroom, Marcus was sitting on the porch with coffee. "I was starting to worry," he said. "You missed lunch." "I was tired," Lily said simply. Then, after a pause, "This is really happening, right? I'm really staying?" "Yes," Marcus said. "Really happening. Really staying." Lily sat down beside him, and for a long moment, they just sat in silence, watching the afternoon light move across the garden. "What happens next?" Lily finally asked. "Next," Marcus said, "we fight. We make sure the people who hurt you understand that actions have consequences. And we make sure that when this is over, you get to decide what your life looks like. Not your grandmother. Not social services. Not foster families. You." Lily nodded, absorbing this. Then she asked, "Do you think anyone will believe me?" Marcus turned to look at her directly. "I believe you, and that's where we start." The first week in the guest house, Lily seemed to be adjusting well. She ate breakfast, attended school, came home, and retreated to her room. On the surface, everything appeared to be moving in the right direction. But Marcus noticed things that told a different story. She would wake up screaming in the middle of the night. Mrs. Garcia found her standing at the kitchen sink at 3 a.m., washing her hands obsessively, her skin raw and red. She flinched whenever Marcus approached her from behind. And most tellingly, she refused to lock her bedroom door, not out of trust, but because she needed to maintain an escape route. Old survival mechanisms die hard. Dr. Helen Park came to the guest house for a follow-up appointment on day 8. What began as a routine physical turned into something much deeper when Lily finally broke down. "I don't think I can do this," Lily said, sitting on the edge of the bed in her room, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles turned white. "I thought if I was somewhere safe, the nightmares would stop. But they're not stopping. They're getting worse." Dr. Park sat beside her, not speaking, just listening. After a long silence, Lily continued. "He told me it was normal," she whispered. "He said every girl goes through this, that it was how men show love, that if I cried or told anyone, I was being ungrateful because he was taking care of me. He said my real mother abandoned me because I was too difficult, and his wife kept me because she was kind. But if I made trouble, they'd send me back to social services, and no one would ever want me again." The clinical details emerged slowly over several visits. The abuse had started 3 days after Lily arrived at the foster home. It escalated over weeks. The foster mother knew or suspected but did nothing. When Lily finally told her social worker, the accusation was met with skepticism. The foster father denied everything. He had no prior complaints, a clean record. It was his word against a traumatized child. "Social services didn't believe me," Lily said to Dr. Park. "Ms. Chun looked uncomfortable when I told her, like she didn't want to know. She said we'd investigate. But then her visits got shorter. She stopped coming as often. I think she decided I was lying." What struck Marcus most profoundly was learning about the layers of betrayal Lily had experienced. It wasn't just the abuse itself. It was the system designed to protect her, failing her at every critical moment. David Torres, Marcus's lawyer, arranged for a more thorough evaluation. A child psychologist, Dr. Allison Matthews, spent 3 sessions with Lily, carefully documenting her trauma responses and psychological state. The evaluation confirmed what everyone had begun to suspect. Lily was displaying symptoms consistent with complex trauma and developmental trauma disorder. "She's hypervigilant," Dr. Matthews explained to Marcus in his home office. "Her nervous system is essentially stuck in a state of high alert. She's processing normal sounds as threats. She's having intrusive memories. And she's experiencing shame. A lot of it. She blames herself for the abuse." "How is that possible?" Marcus asked. "She's 9 years old. How could anyone blame themselves for that?" "Because children are egocentric," Dr. Matthews said gently. "They think they caused the things that happened to them. They also internalize the messages they're told. Her foster father told her she was special, that this was normal, that she should be grateful. She internalized that as truth. Now she's caught between knowing intellectually that what happened was wrong and emotionally believing she somehow caused it or deserved it. Marcus decided to have a conversation with Lily about this. It wasn't easy. She resisted at first, insisting that Dr. Matthews was wrong, that maybe she had done something to encourage his attention, that she shouldn't have run away because now she was just making everything worse. "Lily," Marcus said, sitting across from her in the living room of the guest house, "I want you to listen to me, and I want you to listen carefully. What happened to you was not your fault. You did not cause it. You could not have prevented it. And you do not deserve any blame for it." "But I didn't stop him," Lily said, her voice small and broken. "I could have fought harder. I could have told more people. I could have." "Stop," Marcus said firmly. "You were a child in the care of an adult you were supposed to be able to trust. He had all the power. He had the authority. He had the access. He chose to abuse that power. You survived. You were brave enough to tell someone. You were brave enough to protect yourself by leaving. That's not failure, Lily. That's survival." Over the following weeks, more pieces of Lily's history began to emerge. Her mother hadn't simply abandoned her. She had struggled with addiction and mental illness. Lily had vivid memories of her mother's instability, of nights spent alone or with strangers, of uncertainty about where her next meal would come from. When her mother's rights were terminated and Lily was placed with her grandmother, it felt like rescue. Her grandmother had been the first stable adult in her life. For 2 years, Lily had known what it meant to have someone who showed up consistently, who read to her, who encouraged her education, who made her feel valued. When her grandmother had the stroke, Lily didn't just lose a caregiver. She lost the only proof she had that she was worthy of love. "I kept thinking," Lily told Marcus one afternoon, "that if Grandma loved me so much, why did she get sick? Why did she leave me? And then when I went to the foster home, I thought maybe I was just unlovable. Maybe something about me makes people leave or hurt me." "That's the trauma talking," Marcus said. "Not the truth." "How do you know?" Lily asked. "Because I see you," Marcus said. "I see a girl who loves books and learning, who cares about protecting other children, who survived things that would have broken many adults, who still has hope even after being let down repeatedly. That's not an unlovable person, Lily. That's a remarkable person." James Richardson from Child Protective Services came to the guest house for a meeting with David Torres. He reviewed all the documentation, Dr. Park's medical evaluation, Dr. Matthews' psychological assessment, Lily's statement, and the evidence of systemic failure in her case. "We have a problem," James said, spreading files across Marcus's dining table. "Ms. Chun, the social worker, is claiming she did follow up. She says she visited the home twice after Lily's allegation. Says she found nothing concerning." "What does the foster father say?" David asked. "He's lawyered up," James said grimly. "Says the whole thing is a misunderstanding. Says Lily was acting out because she couldn't handle the structure and discipline of a real family. He's making her sound unstable, attention-seeking." Marcus felt anger rise in his chest, but he kept his voice level. "What's our path forward?" "It's complicated," James said. "Lily needs to be willing to testify about what happened, and we need corroborating evidence. We need to investigate the social worker's claims about her follow-up visits. We need to find other victims if there are any. It's going to be a difficult process, and there's no guarantee it will result in criminal charges. But if we can get enough evidence, we can at least ensure Lily stays in protective custody and that this family loses their foster license." That evening, Marcus sat with Lily on the back porch of the guest house. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. It was the first time since she'd arrived that she seemed genuinely calm. "I need to tell you something," Marcus said, "and it's going to be hard to hear, but I think you need to know it." Lily's body immediately tensed. "Are you sending me back?" "No," Marcus said firmly. "I will never send you back. But I am telling you that we're going to take legal action. We're going to fight to make sure that what happened to you doesn't happen to another child. And that's going to require you to be brave in a different way. It's going to require you to tell your story to people in positions of authority, to lawyers, to investigators, possibly to a judge. Lily was quiet for a long time. Will he be there? The man from the foster home? Possibly, Marcus said. But you won't be alone. I'll be there. David will be there. Professionals will be there to protect you. What if I don't remember everything? Lily asked. What if I freeze? Then we stop, Marcus said. We take a break. We get you water. We remind you that you're safe. And we start again. There's no time limit. There's no judgment. Lily leaned against Marcus's shoulder, a gesture she hadn't made before. It was small, but it represented something profound, a gradual shift from survival mode to the beginning stages of trust. Okay, she said quietly. I'll do it. But not because I want to, because I don't want another little girl to feel like I did. That night, Marcus sat alone in his office and looked at the files spread across his desk. Medical records, psychological evaluations, social services reports showing clear negligence. The evidence was extensive, damning, and yet Marcus knew from experience that evidence alone wasn't always enough. The real power would come from Lily's testimony, her voice, her truth, and that terrified him because he knew what testifying would cost her, but he also knew that it was the only way forward. The letter arrived at Marcus's home office on a Tuesday morning. It was from a law firm representing the Hendersons, the foster family. The words were carefully chosen, dripping with legal language designed to intimidate. They were demanding immediate return of their property. Lily. They were threatening criminal charges against Marcus for kidnapping and interference with court-ordered custody. They were calling Lily's allegations fabrications designed to manipulate authority figures. Marcus read it twice, then handed it to David Torres. They're not going to back down, David said, his jaw tight. They're escalating. This is a threat. What neither of them realized was that the Hendersons' aggressive response was only the beginning. Within 48 hours, the situation spiraled. The first indication came when Patricia Chun, the social worker who had supposedly investigated Lily's allegations, filed a counter-report with Child Protective Services. She claimed that Lily had a history of attention-seeking behavior and fabrication. She stated in the report that during her follow-up visits to the Henderson home, she had found no evidence of abuse and that Lily appeared to be adjusting well and had exaggerated minor disciplinary measures into false accusations. This is gaslighting, Dr. Allison Matthews said when David showed her the report during an emergency meeting. This is a social worker protecting herself by discrediting the child. It's textbook institutional failure. But the damage was already being done. James Richardson called Marcus with bad news. A judge just approved an order, James said, his voice tight with frustration. The Hendersons' attorney argued successfully that Lily should be evaluated by an independent child psychologist, not one retained by your team. They want to establish that her allegations are unreliable, and they're filing to have her returned to their custody pending a full hearing. Marcus felt his stomach drop. How long before that hearing? 2 weeks, James said. And Marcus, I won't sugarcoat this. The judge didn't look convinced. The Hendersons' attorney presented them as long-term foster parents with a clean record. He presented Lily as a troubled child from an unstable background. He made it sound like she's a manipulative girl trying to escape reasonable discipline. That evening, Marcus had to tell Lily what was happening. She was in the living room of the guest house, working on a book report for school, seemingly content. When he sat across from her and began explaining the legal developments, he watched her face systematically shut down. They're going to send me back, she said flatly. It wasn't a question. No, Marcus said firmly. They're going to try, but we're going to fight that. David is already preparing our response. You can't fight the system, Lily said, her voice eerily calm. The system always protects the adults. I've already learned that lesson. Miss Chun proved it. Lily, I should never have told you, she continued, her words coming faster now. I should have just stayed in the library. At least there, nobody could hurt me there. You can't go back to living in a library, Marcus said. And the system failing you once doesn't mean it will fail again. But even as he said it, he knew she had a point. The judge's willingness to order an evaluation by an independent psychologist, who would undoubtedly be influenced by the Hendersons' attorneys, showed that the system wasn't as interested in protecting Lily as it was in maintaining institutional stability. The next blow came from an unexpected direction. A reporter from the local news station, Derek Walsh, called Marcus's office asking for comment on a story about a billionaire interfering with child welfare proceedings. "How does the media even know about this?" Marcus asked David. "The Hendersons' attorney leaked it," David said grimly. "It's a strategy. They're trying to control the narrative. They want the story to be about a rich man playing savior and a troubled foster child making false accusations. They want people to see you as the villain." Derek Walsh arrived at Marcus's office building with a camera crew the next morning. Marcus almost didn't stop to talk to him, but he realized that silence would only make things worse. "Mr. Webb," Derek said, thrusting a microphone toward him, "is it true that you removed a foster child from lawful custody without proper authorization?" "I removed a child from a dangerous situation," Marcus said calmly, "and I contacted the appropriate authorities immediately. The Hendersons claim the child is making false allegations to manipulate the system. Do you have evidence to support her claims?" "Yes," Marcus said. "Medical documentation, psychological evaluations, and the testimony of credentialed professionals, all of which will speak for itself in court." That evening, the story ran on local news. Billionaire businessman accused of custody interference in foster care dispute. The report gave equal weight to both sides. The Hendersons' claims of false accusation balanced against Marcus's claims of abuse. It made the situation sound murky, uncertain, politically motivated. The impact on Lily was immediate and devastating. At school, other children had apparently heard about the story. Classmates began treating her differently. Some with suspicion, as though she were a liar. Others with uncomfortable pity. Teachers who had been supportive became distant, perhaps afraid of becoming entangled in a controversial situation. Lily came home from school one afternoon and went directly to her room. She didn't emerge for dinner. When Marcus checked on her at midnight, he found her curled on the bed, fully clothed, staring at nothing. "The kids at school don't believe me," she said without preamble. "Emma asked me why I was trying to ruin that nice family's life. Tyler said I was just trying to get attention." "You know that's not true," Marcus said. "I know," Lily said hollowly. "But it doesn't matter what I know. What matters is what everyone else believes. And everyone else believes I'm a liar." But the external opposition didn't stop with the media. Marcus began receiving threatening messages. Someone slashed the tires on his car. His office received calls from angry citizens who believed the Hendersons' narrative. An online petition began circulating, demanding that Marcus stop interfering with legitimate foster care placement. Dr. Matthews called with concerning news about the independent evaluation scheduled for Lily. "I looked into the psychologist they hired," she said. "Dr. Kenneth Walcott. He has a history of being hired by attorneys in custody disputes and consistently finding in favor of the side that retained him. He's not independent. He's a hired gun. Can we challenge his credibility?" Marcus asked. "We can try," Dr. Matthews said. "But it's going to come down to his word against mine in a courtroom. And he has credentials and a track record." The night before Lily's scheduled evaluation with Dr. Walcott, she didn't sleep. Marcus found her in the kitchen at 2 a.m., sitting in the dark, holding her grandmother's favorite book, the one she'd brought from the library that first night. "I can't do this," she said quietly. "I can't sit across from a stranger and tell him what happened. Not when everyone already thinks I'm lying." "You don't have to go," Marcus said. "We can refuse the evaluation. Then they'll say I'm hiding the truth," Lily said. "There's no winning here. Either way, I lose." Marcus sat beside her, feeling the weight of the system pressing down on both of them. He had money, resources, influence, and none of it seemed to be enough to protect a child from institutional machinery designed to protect itself rather than serve the vulnerable. "Lily," he said finally, "I won't lie to you. This is going to be hard. This is going to be worse before it gets better. But I need you to remember something. The truth is still the truth. Dr. Walcott can spin it, minimize it, reframe it. But he can't change what actually happened. And at some point, if we keep fighting, the truth will be undeniable. And if it's not? Lily asked. If the judge decides to send me back anyway, then we keep fighting, Marcus said. We appeal. We go to higher courts if we have to. We don't stop. Lily held the book tighter, her knuckles white. Why are you fighting so hard for me? I'm not your daughter. I'm not family. I'm just some kid you found in a library. Marcus thought about his own history. He thought about the systems that failed people he'd cared about. He thought about the moment he'd decided that having money meant nothing if he wasn't willing to use it to protect the defenseless. Because you matter, he said simply. And because if people like me don't fight when it matters most, then systems like this never change. You're not just a kid in a library, Lily. You're a test case. Your fight is everyone's fight. The evaluation with Dr. Walcott was everything Marcus feared it would be. The psychologist approached Lily with a skeptical demeanor, asking leading questions designed to undermine her credibility. He suggested her memories might be unreliable. He implied that her trauma symptoms might be exaggerated or fabricated. He spent more time probing for inconsistencies than understanding her experience. When it was over, Lily emerged looking hollow. He doesn't believe me, she said flatly. No, Marcus said. But that doesn't mean the judge won't. The hearing was scheduled for the following week. As the date approached, Marcus knew they were entering the most dangerous phase yet. The Hendersons had the system's default bias in their favor. They were the established guardians, they had no criminal record. They had successfully painted Lily as a troubled, unreliable child. Everything was aligned against them. Everything except the truth. And Marcus was about to gamble everything on whether truth would be enough. The courthouse corridors were crowded. Reporters lined the hallway outside the family courtroom, their cameras and microphones creating a gauntlet that Marcus and Lily had to walk through. David Torres positioned himself between them and the press, barking no comment repeatedly. Lily wore a navy dress that Mrs. Garcia had helped her pick out. She looked small, fragile, every bit of her 9 years visible in the set of her shoulders. But when Marcus looked into her eyes, he saw something else. Determination. She had decided to fight. The courtroom was colder than Marcus expected. Sterile. Designed to be impartial, but somehow feeling like it was already weighing against them. The judge, Honorable Margaret Chun, was a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes that seemed to miss nothing. On one side of the aisle sat the Hendersons with their attorney, Robert Garrison, an older man with the appearance of grandfatherly warmth that Marcus knew was carefully cultivated for exactly this setting. Judge Chun called the court to order. The case began with David presenting their opening statement. He laid out the timeline methodically. Lily's placement with the Hendersons, her first disclosure to Ms. Patricia Chen 3 weeks after placement, the social worker's inadequate follow-up, the escalating abuse, Lily's eventual escape, and the medical and psychological evidence documented since. This case, David concluded, is not about a troubled child seeking attention. It is about a system that failed in its most fundamental responsibility, protecting a child in its care. And it is about guardians who exploited that system's blindness to perpetrate abuse against a defenseless child. Then it was Robert Garrison's turn. His strategy was clear and brutal. Character assassination of a 9-year-old. Your Honor, he began, his voice smooth and reasonable. The evidence before us shows a child with a documented history of trauma, instability, and behavioral difficulties. A child placed in a caring, structured home who struggled to adapt to appropriate boundaries and discipline. A child who, when faced with reasonable consequences for misbehavior, fabricated serious allegations. He presented Dr. Walcott's evaluation, which concluded that Lily's allegations were inconsistent, embellished, and likely influenced by suggestion and manipulation from outside parties with financial motivation. Furthermore, Garrison continued, Mr. Webb, while presenting himself as a philanthropist, is in fact a businessman with significant resources to hire expert witnesses willing to support a predetermined narrative. The Hendersons are long-term foster parents with years of experience and an unblemished record. The word unblemished hung in the air like a lie. David's cross-examination of Dr. Walcott was surgical. He established that Walcott had been hired specifically to discredit Lily's allegations. He showed patterns in Walcott's previous cases where he had consistently sided with the party that retained him. He introduced Dr. Matthews's contradictory findings and highlighted the methodological flaws in Walcott's evaluation. But the real test came when Lily took the stand. She walked slowly to the witness box, her small frame making the chair seem enormous. The bailiff asked her to raise her right hand and swear to tell the truth. Her hand trembled. David approached her gently. "Lily, can you tell the court what happened after you arrived at the Henderson home?" Lily's voice was barely audible at first, but as she spoke, it grew steadier. She described the first time Mr. Henderson came into her room. She described how he told her this was normal, that it was how families worked, that she should be grateful. She described the fear, the confusion, the shame. When she got to the part about telling Ms. Chun, her voice cracked but didn't break. "She asked me questions," Lily said, "but I could tell she didn't believe me. She looked uncomfortable, like she didn't want to know. And then her visits got less often. I thought maybe I had done something wrong, like maybe I had lied without realizing it." "Did you lie, Lily?" David asked. "No," Lily said firmly, meeting his eyes. "Every word is true." Robert Garrison's cross-examination was calculated cruelty disguised as legal procedure. He suggested that Lily had misunderstood innocent actions. He implied that her memory was unreliable because of her trauma history. He asked her detailed questions designed to trip her up or make her seem inconsistent. But Lily didn't break. When Garrison asked if she was certain about specific details, she either confirmed or said clearly, "I don't remember that specifically." She didn't embellish. She didn't get defensive. She told the truth. Then Garrison made his critical error. He asked, "Isn't it true that you've had numerous placements and have a history of behavioral problems?" "Yes," Lily said quietly, "because adults keep hurting me or leaving me. And isn't it possible that you're fabricating these allegations because you're angry at the Hendersons for the structure and discipline they provided?" Lily looked directly at the judge. "I didn't run away because of discipline. I ran away because an adult was abusing me. I knew no one would believe me. I was right." The courtroom went silent. Dr. Helen Park testified next, presenting the medical findings. Physical evidence of abuse. Signs of neglect. Documentation that Lily's injuries were inconsistent with accidental trauma and consistent with the timeline Lily had described. Then came the bombshell testimony. James Richardson testified about the investigation into Ms. Patricia Chen's handling of Lily's case. "We found documented evidence," he stated, "that Ms. Chun visited the home twice, as she claimed. However, we also found that she spent an average of 7 minutes per visit. She did not speak privately with the child. She did not conduct a thorough investigation. And most damning, she documented her findings as no evidence of abuse without actually conducting the kind of investigation protocol requires." "In your professional opinion," David asked, "was this adequate follow-up to a disclosure of child abuse?" "No," James said firmly. "It was grossly inadequate. It was a failure of the system designed specifically to prevent situations like this one." When Robert Garrison tried to rehabilitate the Hendersons' credibility by having them testify, the cracks in their facade became visible. Mrs. Henderson claimed she had no knowledge of any abuse. Mr. Henderson continued to deny all allegations. But under cross-examination, discrepancies emerged. His timeline didn't match Lily's. His explanations for her injuries didn't align with medical findings. His characterization of Lily as troubled began to sound less like description and more like dehumanization. During his closing argument, David stood before the judge and spoke directly to the fundamental issue at hand. "Your Honor, this case presents a choice. We can believe a 9-year-old child who has survived extraordinary trauma and has maintained consistent, corroborated testimony despite enormous pressure and public skepticism. Or we can believe adults with power, resources, and institutional protection. We can prioritize the comfort of the system, or we can prioritize the safety of the child." He paused, letting the weight of that choice settle. Lily did not choose an easy path. She could have remained in the Henderson home and said nothing. Instead, she chose to speak the truth despite knowing no one would believe her, despite knowing it would make her life harder. She did that because she is brave. She did that because she is honest. She did that because she is exactly the kind of person this system should be protecting. Robert Garrison's closing was all theater. He painted the Hendersons as victims of a coordinated campaign by a wealthy man with an agenda. He emphasized Dr. Walcott's credentials. He suggested that Lily had been coached to tell consistent stories. He appealed to the judge's desire to maintain the stability of the foster care system. Do we really want to tell foster families that their commitment will be undermined by the unsubstantiated claims of traumatized children? Garrison asked. The Hendersons have provided Lily with a home, structure, and care. They should not have their lives destroyed by allegations from a child with a documented history of trauma and behavioral problems. Judge Chun said she would take the case under advisement and deliver her ruling within 48 hours. That evening, back at the guest house, Lily was emotionally exhausted but oddly peaceful. She had done what she set out to do. She had told her truth before the court. Now it was out of her hands. "I'm proud of you," Marcus said as they sat on the porch. "I'm proud of myself too," Lily said quietly. "Even if the judge decides against us." "The judge won't," Marcus said, though he couldn't be certain. What he was certain of was that Lily had spoken her truth powerfully and clearly. Whatever came next, no one could deny that she had tried. The waiting was agony. Marcus barely slept. He reviewed the testimony repeatedly in his mind, analyzing every moment, searching for weaknesses. But he kept coming back to one image. Lily on the stand, answering Garrison's questions with unflinching honesty. At 2 p.m. on the following day, Judge Chun delivered her ruling. "I find," she began, her voice steady and clear, "that the evidence overwhelmingly supports the allegations made by Lily against her guardians. The medical evidence is clear. The psychological evidence is compelling. Most importantly, the testimony of the child, corroborated by trained professionals, demonstrates a pattern of abuse and systemic failure to protect." Marcus felt Lily's hand find his in the courtroom. "Therefore," Judge Chun continued, "I am terminating the custody of the Hendersons effective immediately. I am granting temporary guardianship to Marcus Webb pending a full guardianship hearing in 60 days. And I am referring the case to the district attorney for criminal investigation. This court finds that the Hendersons created an unsafe environment and systematically concealed their conduct." She looked directly at Lily. "And I am ordering that Ms. Patricia Chun was investigated for gross negligence in her professional duties." The courtroom erupted. Reporters rushed out. David embraced both Marcus and Lily. But in that moment, what mattered most was the small girl sitting beside Marcus, tears streaming down her face, whispering, "I told the truth. I told the truth and someone believed me." The first week after the ruling, Lily barely spoke. She moved through the guest house like someone waking from a long sleep, present but not quite engaged. Mrs. Garcia tried to encourage her to eat her favorite meals. Marcus attempted to engage her in conversation. But Lily seemed to exist in a pocket of stillness, as though the energy required to fight in the courtroom had depleted something fundamental in her. Dr. Allison Matthews recognized it for what it was, the emotional equivalent of standing down from crisis mode. After weeks of hypervigilance and pressure, Lily's nervous system was processing what had happened. She was safe. The battle was over. Her body was finally allowing itself to feel the weight of everything she'd endured. "This is actually a good sign," Dr. Matthews told Marcus during one of their check-ins. "She's not dissociating. She's not acting out. She's grieving. Let her have this space." One morning, nearly 2 weeks after the ruling, Marcus found Lily in the kitchen with Mrs. Garcia. They were making something together, cookies, by the smell of it. Lily was measuring flour with careful precision, concentrating on the task with the kind of focus that suggested it mattered deeply to her. "What are we making?" Marcus asked. "My grandmother's recipe," Lily said, and for the first time in days, Something like a smile crossed her face. Mrs. Garcia found it online. It's not exactly the same, but it's close. She'd be proud of you, Marcus said. Lily measured out the sugar. I visited her yesterday. In my head, I told her that someone finally believed me. I told her that I stood up in court and told the truth. I told her I'm going to be okay. Marcus sat at the kitchen counter watching Lily work. The physical changes had been gradual but steady over the past 2 months. Her weight had stabilized. The dark circles under her eyes had faded. But this moment, baking her grandmother's cookies, allowing herself to move forward, this was different. This was healing. That afternoon, Sarah Mitchell, the librarian who had first discovered Lily, stopped by the guest house with a stack of new books. She and Lily had stayed in touch sporadically, but the visit felt different now, less weighted with tension. I wanted you to have these, Sarah said, handing over the books. I thought after everything, you might enjoy some stories where things work out. Lily examined the titles carefully. Fantasy novels, adventure stories, books about courage and transformation and second chances. Thank you, Lily said. Then, after a pause, I've been thinking about the library, about going back. Marcus felt a flutter of concern. To sleep there? No, Lily said quickly. To volunteer. With Mr. Chen. He asked me if I'd help with the children's section. Shelving books. Reading to younger kids. Things like that. How do you feel about that? Marcus asked. I feel like the library saved my life, Lily said simply. I think I want to help save someone else's. The full guardianship hearing came 60 days after the temporary ruling, exactly as Judge Chun had ordered. This time, the courtroom was packed not just with reporters, but with community members. Word had spread about Lily's case. It had become something larger than one child and one family. It had become a referendum on whether systems designed to protect children actually did their job. Judge Chen's ruling was swift and unanimous. I am granting permanent guardianship of Lily to Marcus Webb. The evidence is overwhelming that Mr. Webb has provided the safety, stability, and love that Lily requires. Furthermore, I am recommending a comprehensive review of Child Protective Services procedures in this district, with particular attention to the protocols for investigating abuse allegations and the accountability mechanisms for social workers who fail in their responsibilities. She looked directly at Lily. You showed tremendous courage, not just in the courtroom, but in choosing to live, to heal, and to trust an adult to help you. That kind of courage changes systems. After the hearing, as they left the courthouse, Marcus asked Lily what she wanted to do to celebrate. Can we go to the library? Lily asked. I want to show Mr. Chun that the case is over. I want to show him I'm okay. They arrived at the Riverside Public Library on a Saturday afternoon. Mr. Chun was restocking the children's section when he saw Lily walk in. The recognition on his face was immediate and profound. He came around the desk and simply looked at her. You look good, he said finally. You look safe. I am, Lily said. I'm going to volunteer here, if that's okay. I want to help other kids love books like I do. That evening, back at the guest house, Marcus found Lily sitting on her bed with an old photograph. One she'd retrieved from storage after everything was settled. It showed a younger version of herself with her grandmother, both of them laughing, both of them happy. I'm moving her things, Lily explained. The books and photos from my grandmother. I'm setting up a little memorial shelf in the living room. Is that okay? Of course it's okay, Marcus said. This is your home. You get to decide how it looks. Over the following weeks, the guest house began to transform. Lily's touch was everywhere, not in the way a space gets decorated, but in the way a space gets lived in. She hung photographs. She arranged books. She brought out her grandmother's china cups and put them in the kitchen cabinet. She was literally and figuratively unpacking. Her school performance improved dramatically. She joined the school's book club. She made a friend, a girl named Sophie who loved reading as much as she did. One afternoon, Marcus watched through the kitchen window as Lily and Sophie sat on the back porch, deep in conversation about a novel they were reading, sunlight catching in Lily's hair. 3 months after the guardianship was finalized, Dr. Matthews conducted a comprehensive psychological reassessment. The results showed marked improvement in nearly every measure. Lily's hypervigilance had decreased substantially. She was sleeping through the night without nightmares. Her anxiety levels had normalized. Most importantly, she was showing signs of post-traumatic growth, not despite what she'd endured, but because she'd successfully navigated it with proper support. What's remarkable, Dr. Matthews told Marcus, is that Lily hasn't minimized or forgotten what happened. She knows what she survived, but she's no longer allowing it to define her future. She's integrated it into her story rather than letting it consume her narrative. One evening, Marcus was working in his office when Lily appeared in the doorway. "I wrote something," she said, "for a school assignment, but I wanted to show you first." The essay was titled, "The Library Saved My Life." Lily had written about the first night she slept in the stacks, about how the books had become her friends, about how a place designed to share knowledge had become her sanctuary. But she'd also written about what came after, about Marcus finding her, about Dr. Park examining her, about standing in the courtroom and telling the truth. "The scariest moment," Lily had written, "wasn't when I was living in the library. The scariest moment was when I had to choose whether to believe I was worth saving. In the end, someone else, Marcus, believed it first. But eventually I believed it too. Now I know I was always worth saving. I just needed someone to prove it to me." Marcus finished reading and looked up at Lily. "This is remarkable. Is it okay that I'm sharing this at school?" Lily asked. "Some of it's pretty private." "I think it's more than okay," Marcus said. "I think it's important. Other people need to hear your story. Other kids need to know they're not alone." That Saturday, Lily began her volunteer work at the library. Marcus watched as she helped younger children select books, as she read aloud to a group of 5-year-olds, as she shelved returns with meticulous care. She moved through the library with purpose and peace, a child who had found her place. The Hendersons were criminally charged. They pleaded guilty to reduce charges and serve time. Ms. Patricia Chan was investigated and resigned from social services rather than face formal disciplinary proceedings. The incident sparked a citywide review of child protective services, resulting in new protocols and increased accountability measures. But for Lily, those developments were secondary. What mattered was the daily reality of her transformed life. It was Sunday morning pancakes with Marcus. It was reading assignments from school that she was excited about rather than anxious over. It was the moment she asked Marcus, hesitantly, "Is it okay if I call you Dad?" Marcus had simply said yes, and Lily had smiled. A real smile, unguarded and full of hope. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Lily turned to Marcus. "I keep thinking about the night you found me in your office. Do you remember? I asked why you were helping me. You said it was because I deserved better than surviving, that I deserved to actually live." "I remember," Marcus said. "I'm living now," Lily said. "I'm actually living, not just surviving. And it's better than I thought it could be." Marcus reached over and took her hand. "You did that. You chose to live. You chose to trust. You chose to tell the truth even when it was terrifying. I just showed up and believed in you." "But you stayed," Lily said. "That's the most important part. You stayed." As the sun sank below the horizon, Marcus thought about the moment Sarah had called him from the library. He thought about a small girl clutching a sleeping bag and a book. He thought about the journey from that moment to this one, a journey measured not just in time, but in courage, in trust, in the transformative power of being believed. Lily's story had changed the system. But more importantly, Lily's story had changed Lily. From a child hiding in the shadows to a young woman stepping into the light.